Welcome back to a brand new YouTube video, and today we're going to be ranking all 10 Saw movies after the release of Saw X. Saw X just released in cinemas. We now have the 10th installment of the Saw franchise. Yes, who would have believed that the Saw franchise would go on for that long? I recently just rewatched all of the Saw movies and I ranked them all on Letterboxd, which I'll leave a link to in the description if you want to follow me, get movie recommendations, and see a lot more of what I'm watching and my opinions. And like I said, in this video, I'm going to take you from the worst one down at number 10 all the way up to number 1 and give you my thoughts and opinions on all of the movies. So without further ado, let's just straight up jump into it. At number 10, the worst in the Saw franchise, I have the movie Spiral, technically Saw 9. I really think in this movie, they were trying to start something new, and it really shows, but it just did not land, and quite evidently, they just completely cancelled the whole thing. I have so many problems with this movie. One, it doesn't even look or feel like a Saw movie. It really suffered from a lack of John Kramer in any sort of way. Chris Rock feels very out of place, and the ending completely stops instantly nearly and cuts to the credits. I think the traps in this film were pretty terrible and not very creative, and by far the worst, most insufferable point of this movie was the voice they used for the Jigsaw killer.
Hello, Detective Banks. Salvation was offered, but it was declined.
Never ever change the voice. Coming in at number 9 for me, I have Jigsaw, technically Saw 8. For one, I don't really know why they didn't just call the movie Saw. Like, it's like they were trying to start something or have a standalone, and again, it just did not work. The editing was not the same as Saw. It looked different. It had like a very normal sort of color grading, which it just didn't feel like a Saw movie. The best way I would describe this is it felt like a Saw movie made by like Disney or made by like Netflix or something. It just felt dumbed down with none of the grit, none of the really like hard hitting gore. The plot twist at the end was actually alright, but for me it just felt like they were trying so hard to find any angle to retcon anything to squeeze another film out. And the laser trap just felt so far-fetched it didn't even feel like a Saw trap to me. Coming in at number 8, we have Saw the Final Chapter, or Saw 3D. And let me just be completely straight here, I don't like this film either. I think this film is actually pretty terrible. I think Hoffman in this movie is a very unenjoyable antagonist. I do not like him at all. I won't talk too much about all of the negatives of this film because there is so many, but the positives are as follows. John with his little backwards hat looks swaggy as hell at the book signing. Lawrence the Doctor is actually an enjoyable part of the film, and when Hoffman gets double crossed by John, even after John's dead at the end of the film, John always having the last laugh is one of the best things in the Saw franchise. At number 7 is Saw Chapter 4. In Saw 4, John Kramer and Amanda are now dead, and Hoffman has taken over, but we're not meant to know that till the very end. We're trying to work out who this Jigsaw killer is the whole movie. This is the one where they have the FBI or SWAT agent thrown into the traps, and he's kind of traveling around to different locations. For me, just don't really like it. It doesn't feel like a Saw movie because they're not kind of trapped in a big warehouse, or it just feels a little bit out of place. Like they tried to do something different, didn't really land, and then obviously after they just went back to the normal format. Coming in at my list at number 6 is Saw 6 itself. In this movie, we learn early on that these health insurance people are pretty terrible people. They're not very nice. And obviously this gets them put to the test in a bunch of Jigsaw traps. This film isn't terrible, although once again, like a lot of the Saw films does, it does retcon many things in the franchise, which kind of takes me out of it a little bit. However, the traps and the philosophy behind choosing the victims in this movie are actually pretty great, and I do enjoy them, especially the spiral carousel trap. For me, that is one of the most iconic Saw traps. At number 5, we have Saw 5. Once again, I feel like the films with John dead just don't have that extra little touch of charisma about them. Hoffman's decent, the voice notes with John are pretty great, and the flashbacks are alright, but just to have the guy there instantly just makes the film better in my opinion. This one shows 4 people put against each other to test their will to survive, and in general, it's okay, it's just pretty standard. However, the ending for me is the highlight of this film. With Hoffman getting in the glass case, I think this ending could be one of the best endings in any of the Saw films, and I think it's pretty genius. At number 4 is Saw number 2, and I actually enjoy this film. I think it's pretty decent, it's pretty solid, and it has a good story. We get to see a lot more of Amanda in this film, which is pretty interesting. We have the plot where they're all trapped in the house trying to search for these keys to get out. A lot of the traps are very brutal. The furnace, the needle pit makes me squint every single time I have to see it. every moment with John and the police in his warehouse is actually fantastic. I really enjoy every interaction they have. I enjoy this one quite a bit, and I really love that this is the movie that reinforces the fact that you have to play by the rules or you will die. Now, moving into my podium places, at number 3, I have Saw number 3. This movie, again, pretty good story. It's very solid, the traps are very creative. In my opinion, one of the most underrated traps is in this film, where we have the girl hanging completely covered in ice with the water being sprayed on her. That is absolutely brutal, and people don't really talk about it ever. We also find out in this movie that Amanda is kind of corrupt. She sets up traps that simply cannot be won, and in the end, it all comes round to bite her. The ending in this movie is actually very clever. How John was testing Amanda this whole time using the surgeon. It's actually brilliant, and I really enjoy it. Also, shout out to the neck breaker head spinner trap, because that is up there with some of the worst, most brutal traps in the whole franchise. Now, coming in at number 2, maybe controversially, but we'll see, is Saw number 1, the original Saw movie. Now, don't get me wrong, this film is absolutely iconic. That first ever room, cutting the leg off, like everything about this film screams horror icon. Learning the philosophy behind why John puts people in these traps, Lawrence escaping at the end, and then the moment that I will never ever forget watching for the first time. The whole film, I was like, okay, interesting, and then right at the end, when the music kicks in, and John stands up as the corpse in that room, I actually lost my mind. I was mind blown when I watched this for the first time, and I will never forget that feeling. So for me, this film is at number 2, arguably number 1, but it's very, very close. I just think the intellect and genius that went up into setting all the parts of this big scheme and plan and game that John was playing is very incredible. And yes, of course, if we're basing it off just how iconic the films is, I would put number 1 by an absolute country mile. However, I actually think there is one better film in the Saw franchise. And that's right, coming in at number 1, the best film in the whole Saw franchise, I genuinely believe is Saw X, Saw number 10. But why? Why would Saw X be the best film in the whole franchise? Very, very simple. It tried something new. It took the best part of every Saw movie, which is the very small moments we got of John Kramer, and just put it at the front of the movie. That's all we ever wanted. Saw X gave John more of a backstory, it made us empathise with him, made him more complex, more interesting, humanised him a lot more. There were parts of Saw X where I was forgetting he was a serial killer. He just felt like a very sweet, caring old man, and it done this very well. And as for the traps, we had some of the goriest, most brutal traps I have ever seen. The bone marrow trap, cutting your whole leg off and still having to do more to win, is insane. And then I've not even mentioned the brain surgery trap. Cutting into your own brain, fishing around inside your head while there's a camera on it. That is beyond insane, and it might actually be the hardest, worst trap ever in Saw. Dr. Cecilia Peterson was actually a great sort of villain, I guess, even though she was technically a victim, but she was also a villain. She was excellent. She was awful the whole film. I've never rated against a character more. And the ending was so clever, I couldn't believe it. I was in the cinema like, oh my god, no way John has planned for all of this. The ending of this film pretty much just solidified that I think John actually could be one of the best characters ever. And there we have it. Let me know what you think. Saw X is my number 1. It could be recency bias and maybe it will change over time, but that's the beauty of film. Our opinions always change and everyone's opinion's different. There is no right answer for what this ranking should be. So let me know what yours is down in the comments. If you disagree, if you agree, what you think I said correct, what you think I got wrong. Let's just start a little discussion about the movie. I'll be replying and liking every single comment. If you watched it this far, please subscribe to me because so many people that watch my videos or came over from shorts haven't subscribed. So yeah, hi, my name is Andrew. I talk about movies every day of my life, so please join the journey. I'm going to be posting so much more about all your favourite franchises coming out in the future. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching. Leave a comment about what you thought about my ranking, and I will see you in the next video.